Roll cart alley collection, and Tim Davis is going to present that to us.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Excuse me. The City of Moscow is in the process of implementing a new single stream recycling program, which is scheduled to begin February 1 of 2016. The city previously issued a request for proposal, or RFP, for a modification of services to the single stream recycling to its sanitation provider, Latos Sanitation, Inc. We received the response to that RFP back in March of 2015. The RFP response outlined several proposed changes to routing and minimization of alley service for the purposes of maximizing collection efficiency and also reducing costs. As a part of the implementation process, the city and Latos Sanitation intended on collection of both garbage and single stream roll carts from within the street rights of way, minimizing necessary collection of these roll carts from the alleys. This process had successfully been implemented in various Moscow neighborhoods. And the two that come to mind, we did a alley to street service change of about 157 customers out off of West A Street, would be to the north. And shortly after implementing the roll cart garbage collection program, we had an issue down on 6th Street with the north side parking allowed on 6th Street, and we asked a number of those residents through there, I believe there were 60 plus customers, to alter their collection areas. Those were the two largest ones that come to mind. Within the past 3 weeks, notices were sent by Latos Sanitation to approximately 456 Moscow garbage and recycling customers, directing that roll carts be moved from the alleys to the street for collection. Since that time, in part because of the street parking situation in certain neighborhoods, complicated by the lack of driveways and inaccessibility of residences to the street, the decision to terminate alley pickup of roll carts has come into question. The recent snowfall and resultant ice and snow berm accumulation also raised additional concerns. In light of the recent concerns and complications, City Council asked that these alley collection notices be suspended until the issue could be revisited. On Tuesday, January 5th, the mayor, the city supervisor, and myself met with management from Latos Sanitation to discuss this issue and notify them of this action. New notices were sent out Thursday affirming the action that was taken, in hopes that most customers affected would have received that by the weekend.
Right. So when you met with Latos Sanitation last week, you said, okay, let's push this back indefinitely until we revisit this. So with that, what would we recommend then? You went and visited the site, and I know you and I talked a little bit about that, and you said, yeah, I did notice this, and we talked about the snow berms there.
Let's take a step back.
Okay.
When this issue first arose, it was brought to committee. I believe it was Councilman Kraus asked me to visit the 456 folks that would be affected, and obviously our big concern was someone that might have a steep hillside or steps or that type of thing. Obviously, the Fort Russell district looks quite a bit different now than it did back in July.
Right.
The other concern, a lot of the concerns we're hearing, is a lot of the homes in the Fort Russell district don't have the driveway access to the street.
Right.
And the concerns are valid, in my mind.
Right.
We have a lot of folks that I think, especially in these weather conditions, would really struggle. That being said, I would like to accept responsibility for not giving this the scrutiny that I probably should have. I did scrutinize the parking situation, but again, I'll say, there's a lot of different things that come into implementation of a program like this. It was an oversight on my part, and I obviously fell short.
Yeah, we got a lot of moving parts here, and that's kind of, I remember when we talked about when we first went to the roll carts, we wanted to wait and see how that played out before we even stepped in this direction. We stepped in it a little bit, of course, but that's how things go. Walter, you know, something?
Yeah, I was pleased that I did not get stopped by the police the other day when people saw a car they hadn't seen before driving up and down their alleys. But I did go out and drive it, and I see what the questions and concerns have been raised. It appears a lot of these houses, the only access from the back of the house to the front street is through the house. There are fences, there's landscaping, it's been there for 100 years. The driveway itself, like you said, is a problem because the driveways help people set trash containers out when we've got snow berms along the curb line. And I mean, the driveways give them an open place.
Right.
Now that we're trying to use the things on the snow plows to catch them and not pile the driveways too much if we can help it. So it gives a place to set a trash can. But they can't keep it in the back out of sight like we expect them to and then get it to the front yard without going through the middle of the living room. And that's just not going to work. So I think Tim's recommendation, if that's what it was, that we stay with the alley service as it has been, is the best thing to do. And I'm certainly in favor of it.
Art, you had a comment?
Oh, I had a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
Walter's got to some of them already, but I can see potentially some of the current alley service may have alternatives available, but a lot of those places where you've got narrow streets, parking on both sides, you could pull out your carts, place them out curbside, somebody parks in front of them. Now what do you do?
Well, you know, I just got my cart, and they even want the carts, you know, a
3
little bit
feet
of room
apart.
between them so they can
Yeah.
work.
And so when you go fishing for these carts with these large trucks, that's neither safe nor efficient in picking up the trash. And so currently we've got our alley access that's been working for years and years. And so my big question is, what changed? You know, why give up alleys now unless there's a real overriding reason to do so?
And I agree. And I think the purpose was to try to not only move the single stream carts out, but the garbage carts in order to gain some efficiency with the automated trucks. And that was the scrutiny that I gave to the whole plan. Was we have so many neighborhoods that allow parking on the street that the folks that live there cannot control what happens when a cart gets blocked, you know, and it was just.
Gary.
I think as Tim indicated, it definitely was a miss on our part. Assessing the neighborhoods in the summertime when students aren't there and so on and so forth. Parking is a little less crowded, no snow berms on the street, so on and so forth. If you recall, when the original proposal RFP response from LSI, one of the reasons that they wanted, this is just as Tim said, they wanted to go to fewer vehicles, less men on the
More
vehicles,
automation.
or less personnel in the vehicles. Certainly better service, quicker service, economies of scale, so on and so forth. The bottom line is, in our city, as in a lot of older cities, there are neighborhoods where they don't work really well. They work great in new subdivisions, like you say, where you have driveways and perhaps wider streets and less congestion. So I think in this case, in speaking to LSI, they understand as well. Their proposal was based upon those economies of scale and those
Right.
efficiencies. So they were clear to point out to us that that's a service, a labor-intensive service serviced by a different type of vehicle than the ones that were anticipated in bringing their proposal forward. So Tim is working with them to try and determine what adjustments, if any, need to be made to compensation to LSI for changing that collection, maintaining what it is now rather than going to what would have been a more efficient collection. So that's the second part of this that will be coming forward.
Art.
So do we know that the scale of the new automated vehicles is such that they can't safely and effectively negotiate the alleys as they're currently configured?
Yes, the automated trucks don't work very well in the alley simply because we have a lot of overhanging trees, fences.
Speaking with Streets Department today, and they indicate that the overhanging bushes and trees and things like that have been trimmed back recently over some of the objections of the neighbors. But now that they're trimmed back, are they still precluding access of the trucks to get
The,
to the
the automated truck is also a larger truck, and you only have access
one
from one side. So it would mean running up the alley and then turning around and running back down the alley.
Now, I don't know, this could be something that could be negotiated with the people who live on the alleys. I would think that people could just bring it across to the other side of the alley instead of clear looping around.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a minor adjustment that could take care of a lot of these issues.
Well, Walter had something.
I understand what you're saying, Gary, about LSI and their efficiency and their pricing. But quite frankly, I'm not going to be very receptive to a changing contract until they walk in here waving a check for our $250,000 we fronted them on their screw up on the color of the single stream recycling cards. I mean, I get it, but they need to get it. That'll go a long way to make me feel better about looking, and I will look closely at their numbers. It's 100 and, how many houses we're talking about?
456.
456. How many blocks of alleys, do you know?
I don't know off
Okay.
the top of my head.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm really gonna look at it.
Fully understand. And the issue, it's not just, the discussion that we had made it very clear that Tim needs to look at their numbers, look at their routes. There were route changes made, day changes made. It was all designed to accommodate this new collection system.
Right.
So Tim will work with them to come up with hopefully some good alternatives. I think the one of the discussions I believe we had was we're really talking about maybe 10% of our ratepayers,
Right.
our customers here. So there's still 90% that apparently still works pretty well and can take advantage of those efficiencies. Not being a sanitation guy, Tim will be working with them on that, and the proposal that comes in will be fleshed out. And certainly if you want to ask the status of the recoupment of the city money, I'm certain you can do that at that time. But Tim will have that all fleshed out before it comes back to the council.
So something else to clarify a little bit on what Gary touched on there. You know, we talked about when we started this that there would be some route changes, some day changes for folks. Now there's going to be some more. So, you know, hopefully we're not getting too much confusion, but you know, this is something we're going to have to deal with as this goes on.
What we discussed in our meeting was LSI is that if council chooses to keep alley service, obviously that's going to be a different vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Let's sit down and go through this and give it 90 to 120 days, which would put us into the summer months, and do, if we have to, just an alley only route.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be some, what I'm getting at is there may be some further route changes down the road, but they'll definitely have to be reconfigured to make them more efficient.
But the route changes that you just made will stay in effect until
They
that's
will
decided.
stay in effect until that's decided.